Welcome to the Confidence Through Health podcast. My name is Jerry Snyder. As a health, wellness, and sports performance coach, my goal each week is to bring you experts to help you take control of your health and build your self-confidence. Thanks for including me today on your journey to better health. As an elite level runner and coach, I'm excited to introduce you to the All In Running Club. The All In Running Club exists to help you become a better runner. Whether you're a beginner, an elite runner, or anywhere in between, the mission of the All In Running Club is to give you the tools you need to find your success in running. Join today to take advantage of the 75% off yearly membership rate offer. Click the link below in the show notes to learn more. So thank you, David, for joining me on the Confidence Through Health podcast.
Oh, Jerry, been looking forward to this. I know we're going to have a blast today.
We are. But the first thing I always try to get, what inspired people? What got you going? What got you motivated? So why help people with sports psychology and all the other things that you do as well? Because you do so many things with helping people, which is all boils down to is the psychology of their mental preparation for life.
Yeah.
So
Jerry, everyone is here for a purpose. Everyone has a purpose. It doesn't matter what that might be. It doesn't matter what level we're at, ground level, executive level, all pro athlete level. It doesn't matter. Right. We all have a purpose. And, it was very obvious from a very young age that one of the purposes I have in life was to be a leader, a teacher. Some people would say healer. I'm a little on that term, yeah. I think I can lead people to healing themselves, but I don't heal anyone type of a thing, So, right. But at a very young age, I was extremely independent. My parents passed away just a couple of years ago. They would say he was extremely independent. I was a tough kid. Yeah. I never could follow the crowd, which meant I couldn't follow my mom and dad. And so, we had a really rough childhood until I actually went to Syracuse University and that was a turning point for me getting out of the house. Actually, it was around the late 20s that I was able to, call my parents and tell them, my God, 99% of what you tried to teach me as a child was correct. Yeah. And, right. and one of the things, Jerry, that happened, we're talking in the 50s, now, I was never diagnosed correctly with mental health challenges. And it wasn't until a failed suicide attempt in 1990 that I was actually diagnosed with 4 mental health challenges that I'd had my whole life that had never been treated. Oh. I had deep clinical depression, which is obvious. Anytime there's a suicidal attempt, there's a deep clinical depression. I had generalized anxiety disorder that was never discovered. I had ADD that was never discovered, ADHD that was never discovered. So what we found is that, and I know I'm jumping a little bit here, but it'll all come together. What I found was that independence as a child, a lot of it was fueled by this unknowingness of how to handle my own emotions. But one thing I could handle was leadership. Yeah. One thing I could handle. So basketball was my sport. So being the point guard and shooting guard at the same time, I had to run the team. As a pitcher in baseball, I was the leader in there. Right. And it just became a really natural thing. And of course, when you're a leader, if it truly is part of your nature, the second category underneath leadership is caring. Real leaders care. And that led me into the world of personal growth, counseling, therapy. I became an all faith minister and all these things. But, it all started with leadership. Yeah. And it all then was compounded with this incredible compassion that I was born with to help people, not only the people that can pay, but to help people in general. Like if you see me on the street, you'll see me stopping and talking to every homeless person I see. Yeah. You'll see me at a red light. There's lots of red lights around the US and there are homeless people panhandling right at the red light, right? And I'll roll down my window and I'll say, hey, what's your name? And, how long have you been out here? And how are you doing today? And, I'm going to say a prayer for you. And here's a couple dollars. Please use it for your highest good. Right. So I share all this because it's part of who I am. And the part of who I am that sounds so beautiful is beautiful, compassionate, caring, leadership. But then everyone has a yin to the yang, and the opposite of that is me controlling my emotions, dealing with the mental health challenges. I was an addict for 30 years, alcoholic and addict. It's been a very long time. My recovery is so beautiful and so powerful. with both of my parents dying, it took them 4 years to die.
Yeah.
It was horrendous deaths. The only benefit that we had is that we were able to keep them in their own home. But my mom had dementia, which is next to Lou Gehrig's disease, two of the worst diseases you can ever imagine going through. And she wasn't our mom.
Yeah.
Like for 4 years we lost, even though she was alive, there would be moments of clarity.
Yeah.
And my brother would FaceTime me right away, Jerry. Oh my God. And he'd go, you probably got 5 minutes, and I was in Florida and they're in Syracuse, New York, and I would jump all over that. But I tell you that part of the story because not at one point during the 4 years of their suffering, death, and dying did I ever think about having a drink or escaping reality.
Right.
And what happened is my heart became more open. I became more compassionate.
Yeah.
I learned more about grieving and death than I ever thought I would ever learn. Jerry, some experiences happened to me because of my love of my mother and father. And I want to take a pause right now.
Yeah.
There are people that are watching and listening that may not be happy because of the fact that they didn't have the relationship that I had with my mother and father. And I want to make two reminders. Number one, my relationship with my mother and father didn't start until my late 20s.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two is that I am sorry if you did not get the support you needed from your mom and dad. I'm really sorry because I know what it meant to me later on in life. And it made their passing so much more difficult in so many ways. But I learned so much, Jerry.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned is that life is eternal, that there is no end, that those who pass over can visit us at any time if we set up what's called gateways. And so, 4 years ago, my mom died 3 years ago, my dad a year and a half ago, but it started 4 or 5 years ago. And my whole course on grieving changed completely. I mean, when you theoretically teach grieving because you've worked with so many people that have lost their parents and their brothers and their sisters, there's some validity to that theoretical teaching of grief.
Right.
But nothing can match you going through it yourself and coming out the other side and really knowing what it's like to grieve.
Right.
The one thing I do want to say that has radically changed my whole world in regards to grieving is that every tear we have over the loss of a dog, the loss of a loved one, a friend, a parent, a sibling, every tear is a tear of love.
Oh, yeah.
And I want people to know that. See, we have this misconception that grieving is sadness and loss, and part of it is. And for the first number of months, or maybe for some people years, the sadness and the loss and the pain is there. And the tears feel like tears of pain and sadness and loss. But in all honesty, Jerry, if there was not love, you would not have a tear.
Oh, true. Yeah.
There would be no tears if there wasn't love. So, a good friend of mine, Candace Pert, wrote a book in the 90s called Molecules of Emotions, which is a very deep, heavy book. She's a neuroscientist, so it isn't light reading by any means. But the coolest thing in the world that she writes about is that tears are not salt and water.
Yeah.
Like it's so beautiful. Tears are a cascade of hormones.
Right.
Tears and one of those hormones is oxytocin, and oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It's the love hormone, So when you're crying, there's cortisol and adrenaline, which is the sad part of the emotional state. But then there's oxytocin and there's dopamine and there's serotonin and there's GABA. And at the end of a cry of grief, when the body is relaxed, that's where the GABA is just flooding the brain. We've exhaled, we've let go of a certain portion of the pain, and then the body can reward us with that feeling of, some people say it's a feeling of exhaustion, but it's a feeling of relaxation. Really what it is.
Yeah. Well, and like that, and it's like I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. And still don't. And people don't necessarily understand it. He was in the hospital recently, and my siblings were like texting, and I was just like, okay, like matter of fact, like not. My grandfather, on the other hand, my mom's dad, like people would look at us and be like, "You're mirror images." Like, he taught me everything, like fishing stories, everything. Like, taught me how to water ski, and then I've passed that on to dozens of people that I've taught how to water ski. And like, and I was in charge of. I wasn't like, my uncle was in charge of like the funeral and all of that stuff, but he was leaning on me to be like, okay, because he was military, so we had to go to San Antonio for military burial and all that. And he goes, okay, well, you've got connections in San Antonio, like help me figure all this out. And he leaned on me, and everybody was like, "You're not breaking down. Why aren't you breaking down? You're not." And they let me speak at the reception because military burial, you can't. It's very strict on what's happening at the actual burial site and all that. But then we had a reception, and like they let me say something, and I like, and then all of a sudden, just you know, and then right over here on the side of, like, in my kitchen, like, got home and like, okay, everything's done, like paid all the bills, everything's done. And I just shrunk down and sat down and just bawled. I kept it all in, held it all up for everybody else until that moment. And I fully believed, like, exactly what you said is what the emotions that I went through. And then got to the end of that cry session and was just like, wow, that felt it. Yes, it was sadness and, the tears of grief and all that, but there was so much love in that moment. Right. Like, I felt the love from him in that moment, and I've had times like that since then, of like doing different things, especially with my son, because neither of my kids were born when he passed. He passed about 3 months before my oldest was born.
Okay.
So he didn't get to meet my kids. And so now it's like, I get to pass that stuff along that he taught me to my kids, And as I'm doing that, and then it's like, I'll have moments, especially when I taught them to water ski. It was like these moments of like, I look back and I'm watching them from the driving the boat, and then I'm like, they get up and they start skiing off, and I turn around and I'm just like, tears, just like from remembering that moment and that love and that, and it's not, like you said, it's not sadness tears. It's like that love and compassion of taking that experience that I got as a kid and how much I loved it, and being able to pass it on to somebody else.
Yes. And what we're talking about, Jerry, is not the normal way people talk about grief, right. And I'm so glad that, it's funny, before we started the interview, I made a comment that we're a mirror of each other because of our backgrounds and everything. And even, our belief of grief, we've never met before. Right. We've never talked before. Right. And yet, we're in alignment, and it's so beautiful, Jerry, because this is very unusual. Mm-hmm. There aren't many counselors, therapists, psychiatrists that know how to talk about grief. There aren't many people that know how to teach people what to say to someone who's grieving. And since we're on grief, let's talk about that. The worst thing in the world to say, and it's going to sound oxymoronic because we've been trained by society to say these nonsensical words, but, they're in a much better place. Well, let me tell you something. You lose someone, and someone comes up to you at the wake, at the funeral, a month later and says they're in a much better place, they need to be, well, let me just say this. I would turn around and walk away. If I didn't do something ballistic, I would probably just turn around and walk away, because it's the worst thing in the world to say. Right. What you're doing is you're cramming that feeling of losing someone down their throat. Yeah. Instead of standing and really, Jerry, there really isn't much that can be said. The best thing that we can say to someone who's grieving is there anything I can do for you? Right. That's the very best thing. I'm here, I'm present. If there's something you need, I'll get it for you. If there's something I can do, if you'd like to sit and talk, if you'd like to just sit and I'll hold your hand. What is it that you would like? That is all we need to say is questions. We can say, I'm really sorry for your loss. That's fine. Is there anything that you need? And watch your tone of voice. Speak softly, speak with compassion, speak with love. Scarlett Lewis is a very good friend of mine. And about 13 years ago, she lost her 6-year-old son, Jesse, in the Sandy Hook Elementary Massacre in Connecticut. Yeah. In my first #1 best-selling books, and I want to mention this because it's an interesting story. I wrote books, Jerry, for 20 years with zero recognition, almost zero sales. Yeah. Nothing happened for 20 years of writing a book. Yeah. The 21st year of writing a book, we got a #1 bestseller, and we've had like 5 in a row since then. Nice. But I say that because in the book, entitled Positive Thinking Will Never Change Your Life, but This Book Will, I put Scarlett's story about the ridiculous positive statements that people make. And what they said to her was, God needed another angel.
Oh,
Are you kidding me? At 6 years of freaking age, you're going to tell someone that God needed another angel?
Yeah.
Like, see, these are the insane statements, but it's no one's fault, but it's all of our fault.
Oh, yeah.
All we're doing is that we're just following society. We're not thinking with logic. We're not looking at changing anything. This kind of crap, Jerry, has been said for 300 years or more.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure 2,500 years, people have said this kind of crap at funerals and all that stuff. And we need to change, we need to get out of that mindset and think of more compassion. What do you want to hear when your 6-year-old dies? Do you want to hear that God got another angel? Hell, I don't think so.
Yeah.
If my 6-year-old dies, I don't want to hear someone coming up and going, hey, don't worry about a thing, David. God just needed another angel.
Yeah.
No. So let's be really soft.
Right.
Let's be conscious. Let's approach someone who lost, and even a dog, a cat, a freaking goldfish. Listen, I've had clients that have lost, a pet snake they had for 30 years, and everyone goes, oh my God, a pet snake. But to that person, it was their world.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's be really conscious of what we're saying and understand that we can either help someone in the grieving process by just being present.
Right. Or
we can hurt them by trying to make a statement that they're nowhere near ready to hear. Now, if someone comes up to me in 10 years and says, God, I'm really sorry your mom and dad went through that, but 4 years of being in hospice and all those surgeries, both of them,
right,
to be out of that kind of pain must be pretty good. And in 10 years, I can hear that.
Yeah.
I might be able to hear it in 2 years. Who knows, Jerry? But what I'm trying to make an emphatic point that those kind of statements, hold off way down the road.
Right.
All they need is your ears and your heart.
Yep.
A grieving person needs 3 things: both your ears to be totally conscious in the moment for them, and an open, compassionate heart. Willing to do what we can do to try to alleviate some of their suffering, maybe by bringing them food, as is a general customary thing to do.
Right.
Or, can I take care of some, are you behind on bills? Can I help you with some, those kind of logical things I think would be really smart. And, we our 15th book comes out today.
Oh,
Speaking,
nice.
It's kind of funny. And it's a very deep spiritual book.
Yeah.
Our 16th book, which I'm working on right now, is called The Secret of Grief. And we're going to just blow people's minds with a completely different look at the world of grieving. And in the book, we'll also put how you can stay in communication with loved ones who have passed over. We found an incredible formula, Jerry.
Nice.
It's mind-blowing, and it'll work for anyone that wants to work it.
Nice. Well, so you said a couple of things there that I 100% believe in, and that I've actually started to change in my life. One is with somebody, and you just say, and it's with social media, it's so easy now that somebody posts something about like, oh, so-and-so just passed away. I just want to let everybody know, here's the services, blah, blah, blah. And, you look through the comments and everybody's like, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. And I've stopped saying that because I'm like, it's like, okay, I lost something. So you're reemphasizing that I lost something, right?
Yeah.
So if I read that, I'm going to realize it. Like, even if I'm not in that moment, I'm going to go, oh, I lost something, right? Nobody wants to lose something. And so I've switched it to just saying, I'm praying for you and your family. And then if there's somebody that's really close that I know, like, okay, well, they'll accept this, or they'll, because a lot of people, or if they're close, but they're not, they're close in person, but not necessarily close in proximity. So I can't really do a whole lot, but I'll put them there. Like, hey, let me know if you need anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here for you.
You're right on.
Like, because in what I would want, like you just said, like what I would want in that situation, no matter who it is or what it is, like that's the caring I would want.
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny you say that, because like with pets, we had to put we rescued a dog. We had 3 dogs at one time. The last one, we had rescued him at 2 years old. Weimaraner, lived to 17 and a half years old. Like like super old.
Yeah.
And we decided, okay, we've got to put him down. It's like, it's the right time. Put him down. And when we notified people on Facebook and like family members and things like that. And it was so interesting that some people truly connected that with, that's a family member, right? And other people were like, like, okay, you're going to be fine in 2 days. And it was like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
And that grief was so big, like my kids and us, that, because I remember coming in the door the next day, opening the door. Hey, buddy, where are you? Like, God, come here. And I was like, oh, crap, buddy's not here.
Yeah.
Right. And having that moment. And my wife and I were like, okay, we're going to wait like 6 months and then get another dog, introduce them to, like, let's just relax and calm down and not make any decisions. We lasted 4 days. We're like, there is a hole in the house.
Right.
Like there is a hole in the house. We have to address that.
Yeah.
And with pets, that's like, okay, well, we spent $800 on a puppy. We brought another puppy home. Right. Like you can't do that with your parent.
No, that's right. That's right.
And so that's a whole different level of like, yes, it's and it may not be, a parent that is in your house for those time periods. Like, my mom's in Arkansas, my dad's in Georgia, I'm in Texas. Right. So if one of them passed away right now, like, yes, there's a hole, but it's not like I can come home and get distracted by the things in my home and not necessarily think about them like 24/7, like a pet would be.
Right.
But it's still something you can't replace. And so from that grieving process to have that compassion part from the people around you, helps, because it's there, like you can't replace it. So there's nothing they can really do other than just support you through your time of grief.
That's right. And that's the biggest thing with the compassionate listening and having that compassionate, open heart, is just, is there anything I can do for you? And I'm here for you. Please let me know. You can contact me at any time. Those are phrases that can bring comfort. Yeah. Now, they're also phrases that 2 or 3 or 10 other people might say, and that's fine. But you never know when you're the one that says it, that the person connects and says, I do need some help. Right. You'll never know. So don't hold back thinking, well, everyone else has already said this, because you just don't know. They may connect with you at a certain level more so than someone else. Yeah. And maybe they're hoping that you're going to say it because they do want to take, some time and just sit and talk with you. And then when you do say it, they go, oh my God, thank you. And this can happen at any moment. But this conversation that we're having, Jerry, is so mind-blowingly important for this country, especially with what we've been going through in the last 5 years. I mean, when COVID hit, one of the first people that I lost was someone. Well, I'm 67 and he was 60, and he did the same work. He's a therapist. He was in great shape, and he got hit with COVID. He was put in a hospital on what was one of those machines?
A ventilator?
Yeah, a ventilator. Yeah. And within 3 weeks, he was dead. No pre-existing conditions, nothing like that at all. We're in a time of deep grief. Yeah. We're in a time of deep grief with the political situation, with inflation, with wars, with the vaccines and the 17,000 boosters and all this other kind of crap that, comes up. There's a lot of pain in this world right now, and we need to talk about it. We can't hide it. We can't, the one thing I will say, and we have to remember this, what we watch, what we listen to, what we read, who we hang out with leads us into and out of suffering.
Oh, yeah.
So think about this. If you find yourself, like most people in this world, irritable, impatient, angrier than normal, you have to look at what you're watching, listening to, reading, and who you're hanging out with. I did this. I do these videos all the time. We have about 2,700 videos that are free on YouTube on my channel. People can go and watch them all the time. And the last couple of days, I've done several of these videos on suffering because of the fact that I just see it all over the place. I mean, it's incredible how deep the suffering is. And we talk about one of the ways to alleviate suffering is to eliminate the conversation around suffering. And so on the video, I say, at the very most, whether it's a personal challenge you're going through, a business challenge, a health challenge, there should not be more than 2 people you're talking to about your suffering. There should never be more than 2 people. And the reason for that is the more you talk about it, the deeper the suffering gets. Right. So if you say, well, I've got to talk to my husband or wife, and I've got to talk to my mom and her dad. So wait, David, there's 3 people. And no, you do not.
Yeah.
No, you do not have to. That's mass consciousness. That's society that's taught you that you need to share everything with everyone. And it's the worst thing in the world. Keep your opinions on the politics to yourself. Keep your opinions to war on yourself. Are you going to heal politics with your amazing wisdom? The answer is no. I hate to hurt your feelings. Are you going to stop war with your incredible rhetoric that you're sharing at the office? I hate to hurt your feelings. But again, the answer is no, you're not. But could you increase the suffering of yourself and those around you by constantly talking about how you can't stand this president, how you can't stand that president, and we should do this in Russia and we should do this in Palestine? Give me a break. All you're doing is increasing the suffering that you're going through as well as everyone around you. Jerry, we have so much freaking power as human beings to do great stuff. And we waste our time with gossip. We waste our time with all of this social media crap news. I quit watching the news prior to COVID. I am a free man. I didn't see the insurrection at the White House. I don't know a thing about it other than someone told me it happened. I haven't seen TV. Oh, wait, let me take that back. I watched the Miami Heat.
Okay.
Because I'm a basketball junkie. Right. But that's the only thing on my TV is basketball. Right.
Yeah.
And so you can talk to me about all the stuff that's going on and I don't know a thing and I'm comfortable with it. Now, people will say, oh, but you're ignorant. You're naive. You're not a patriot. You have to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I say, and that's how society has trapped you. That's called mass consciousness.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like I stopped watching the news 6 years ago.
There you go.
And just until recently, like we had Netflix and then we watched sports and Netflix, there's no commercials. So we're like, for years, no commercials unless there was sports going on.
Yeah.
And then we recently got, Hulu. And so it's like, we've got some ads here and there. And I'm like, and it's funny because my daughter, she's 14 and, they're showing, because that's what they do. They show ads for this medication and that medication and this medication, right? Because they're trying to do. And so, and she's just looking on her phone, but the ad's playing, she's looking on her phone. It's just other stuff and she's listening to it though. And she looked at me, she goes, why would somebody take that medication with that many side effects? That's what I talked about the whole time. I was like, 30 seconds worth of side effects.
Yeah.
That's all they've talked about.
That's right.
Because she's been oblivious to it because we haven't watched it,
Sure.
And we actually have during the school year, our kids are no electronics. They get their phone so they can text their friends or call their friends. But, no tablet, no TV, no anything during the week, only on the weekends. Because it's like limit the exposure to all this crap.
Totally.
Like, let them become their own person.
Absolutely, Jerry.
And I agree with you completely. It's like that. So what I've done is I've got, my friends and my network that I connect with and that I keep in touch with. And I'm like, okay, I trust this person in their beliefs and I trust this person in their beliefs and this person in their beliefs. Right. So I have to watch the news because I'll call Charles and we'll talk about whatever. And he's like, hey, did you hear da da da? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Okay. I might need to Google that because that has some interest to me or might have especially if it's a local thing, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. It might be something that's important for me to know about. But if they are like, and he's in the mortgage business, he's like, oh, the rates are going up. I'm like, oh, okay. That's all I need to know. The rates are going up. Okay. That's going to affect the economy, da, 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 right?
Right.
I can put 2 and 2 together and get there. I don't have to sit there and watch CNN for 4 hours and then get in this, because all that does is it increases your stress level.
It does. And Jerry, you mentioned something about your daughter, on the phone, watching TV in the background, hearing it. So the subconscious mind, which is, it can be a great ally or a saboteur, depending on what we feed it. The subconscious mind is fed by us. So whatever we do habitually that we don't think about, if we overdrink, if we overeat, if whatever it might be, it's the subconscious has picked up this message that we have given it because we have overeaten for years. The subconscious says, oh, David wants to overeat. We've overdrank for years. So the subconscious says, oh, David wants to overeat. Now, while you're washing the dishes, putting stuff away, and the TV's on the background and the news is on, that subconscious is sucking in every piece of negativity that's being spewed out on that television set. And let's remember this. News is based on sensationalism because news is based on ad sales. Ad sales is based on sensationalism. So when you have those horrific scenes being repeated on every news channel 20 times a day, and you're there seeing it or even just hearing about it in the background, your subconscious mind is already going negative. It's already gone. You can't control it. The only thing that turns the subconscious mind from a negative saboteur to something positive is elimination of the activities that create the negativity in the first place, right?
Right.
So it's an action move. You cannot change the subconscious thought with a thought. You can't say, oh, even though I just watched that show that said so-and-so is an idiot and will never win and blah, 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 I'm not going to pay attention to that. Sorry. It's already locked in, you know? So the only way to get it out is to eliminate the source that brought it in the first place. Let's say news, you know, and then replacing that time with something that is life enhancing. When you do a life enhancing move, let's say you decide, oh my God, to read a book, like a physical book, not on your computer, tablet, tab, whatever, but actually in your freaking hand, you know? Which I try to encourage people all the time because we spend way too much time on our electronics. You know, Jerry, with all the professional athletes I work with and with all the executives I work with, I give them one rule for the morning. And if they don't want to follow it, they don't have to. But I tell them that their growth is going to be extremely limited. The first 60 minutes of every day has to be electronic free. Completely. Not checking the news, not checking text quickly, not checking email quickly. If it means you have to get up an hour earlier, get up an hour earlier. But the first hour is electronic free. You can meditate, you can pray, you can exercise, you can read out of a freaking book, you can, you know, whatever you want, you can journal, right? You can do anything, but it cannot be on a tablet, a phone, an iPad. It can't be on your television set. It can't be a radio. If anyone ever even has, I don't even know if radios are still around. But you know, that first hour, and the reason we're so strong on this, and this is and this is for anyone that wants to be successful. You don't have to be a professional athlete. If you want to be successful, the way you start your day is the way that life will continue to go. You start it with chaos and drama in the news, forget it. There's no way you're going to reach your potential during that day. But you start it with something life enhancing, something that's filled with personal growth, something that's filled with spirituality, if that is something that'll soothe your heart. You start it like that. Give yourself 90 days. Wait till you see how your attitude is going to change. Those things that you used to put up with, like the news, your friends talking about conspiracy theories, all this kind of crap, you're going to get bored of it pretty damn quick.
No, I 100% agree with that. When I started my own business, 7.5 years ago, I got laid off, and God had been telling me for years to do what I'm now doing. And of course I was just like, no, you know, and part of it was society, like, oh, you can't do that. You can't do that on your own. You've got to go do the corporate stuff. That's just how it's done. And I was like, you know, I got laid off, and I'm sitting there going, okay, well, what do I do? What do I apply for? What do I go do? And God said, no. Now is the time. You're finally going to do this, right? You're going to sit down. You've got the time, put it together, start doing it. And so as I did, I'm like, okay, well, I need to know more about all these things that I'm trying to help people with. I was like, well, I can't. And it was funny because I'm on I remember it just, I'm on a run, and I'm trying to think, and I'm like, okay, well, I just started a business. I don't really have a lot of money. So I can't really invest a lot of money in something to teach me these things. Like, what can I do? And I'm like, oh, I can go to the library and get a book. Right. It's free. So I go to my library, and there's very limited business books in my library. And I'm like, well, this is a problem. So a couple of days go by, I'm on another run, and I'm thinking through things, you know, and because I don't run with headphones or listen to anything. I'm just like, I'm out. If I get into nature, I get into nature. I just listen to noises, whatever, like wherever my head goes, my head goes. And I went, oh, well, what if I did a fundraiser running? Because people recognize me all the time. Like, I go to the grocery store, and they're like, hey, you're that runner guy. Like, because I'm in a smaller town, and like, and so what it turned into was I did a fundraiser where I ran every street in my town. It took me 22 days. It was like 150 something miles or something. to raise money for the library to buy books about business and entrepreneurship. And the first time I did it, they bought, I think it was 54 books. And so I was like, boom, okay, here we go. Boom. Like, let's read, let's go,
Wow.
you know, and some, it was like Tony Robbins and like,
Yeah.
you know, stuff that people know, but also I was listening to podcasts. And so every time I listen to a podcast, somebody go, oh, you should read this book or that book or this. And so that was, I think the first time I did it was 2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Done it several times. Now we actually have a 5K that we do and have everybody come. But my list of books, I've now, and I was not a reader. Growing up, it's funny because I got a D in fourth grade reading, like
Right.
not a reader. Like
Right.
I was a sports guy, like let me go outside and play. Like
Right on.
right, you know. I think I read 2 books in the 20 years from college to like when I started this, and those were both mandated by the people I was working for, right? It was
Okay, right.
You've got to read this book because we're all going through it as a, you know, company. And so now I've got, I think I'm on book 165
Right.
since
Right.
2017.
Wow, that's awesome.
Like, because it's like, okay, this is what has to happen. Like I have
Yeah.
to read these things. And
Yeah.
and now I get people that send me books because
Yes.
I've posted about it and stuff. And like, I get people that send me books like, hey, if you haven't read this one, read it. And now of course I can buy my own books or go to a library. And now the library's got hundreds
That's so
of
cool.
books on business and entrepreneurship and stuff. But I fully agree with that. And it doesn't have to be business, doesn't have to be self-development. It could be, but whatever it is, something that like that you're passionate about.
Yeah,
Because if you're passionate about it, then if you learn something about it, you can help somebody else.
that's right.
Right.
You know,
and then that ripple effect happens.
Jerry, and I'll tell you, it's funny you say the ripple effect. The book that came out today, it's called Lessen Your Burdens and Lift Your Spirits. Learn how to create your own, quote, spiritual mental mastermind program to alleviate and to increase inner peace in life. This is the title of the book that just came out today, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you how it came about. In 1980, I was given by a mentor the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. In 1980, I'm reading this book, Jerry, and I'm going, this is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. This is the most incredible marketing I've ever seen.
Right.
The title of the book is Think and Grow Rich. At the end of the book, there's not one story that tells about anyone who thought their way to riches. Okay.
Right.
He was brilliant. It was just a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
Every story is about people that went through hell to become successful. There isn't one story in that book that someone didn't struggle like crap to come out the other side. But then he talked about something that blew my mind. He talked about a business mastermind group that he created. And that's what I modeled my spiritual mastermind group on in 1980. I'm reading the book, and this is what he does. He brings in people. He brought in Abraham Lincoln, Henry Ford, all these people that had passed on. Yeah. And every morning he would call them into his room as a mental mastermind group, and he would have questions. And it would say, hey, I don't know who in here can help me, but I don't know how to get this product to sell. I don't know how to get this to move, you know? And he said every day, all of a sudden an answer would come. And he'd go, God, that sounds like something Abraham Lincoln would say, you know, and I'm reading it. And Jerry, I'm getting fired up, not from a business perspective. I'm thinking, my Lord, from a spiritual perspective, can you imagine if we had people every morning calling in, whoever their favorite spiritual guides are, you know, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Mother Mary, the archangels, the apostles, whoever, I don't care who it is, right? You can, and then, you know, in my group, oh my God, I've got Wayne Dyer, Deepak Chopra. I have, of course, Napoleon Hill. I have Thich Nhat Hanh, a very famous Buddhist monk.
Yeah.
You know, Yogananda Paramahansa, who's, you know, an extremely, and as a matter of fact, I'm going through a program to become a monk with his organization in San Diego.
Nice.
And it's going to be a secular monk. I went and spent time in a monastery, and I loved it, but I'm too much of a free spirit, at least right now. Maybe when I turn 90, it'll be different. But, you know, when I contacted them, I said, you know, I really want to do this on a secular level. I'm going to still do my work with athletes and executives, But then this deep spiritual work is going to be something that's going to start taking over more and more of my life. But I want to do it from a secular level, which they were totally great with, Yeah. So in the book, what we teach people how to do is how to sit and create, how to call certain people in. And then I tell stories in the book, I'll tell you one story from the book regarding this brand new book. Mm-hmm. A number of years ago, a woman came to me struggling with extreme PTSD. Oh my God, extreme. She couldn't go out of her house. It's called being agoraphobic. She couldn't go out of her house. She could barely work. Anything that she could make was just enough to survive. And she contacted me and said, I've been to all these therapists. I'm on all these medications. Nothing's working at all. Right. And I'm wondering if you would help me. And I said, absolutely. So we started working together. And right away, I asked her about her spiritual path. And she said, well, I'm a deep believer in God, but I really don't do anything. And so I said, hey, why don't we do this? And I explained the program. She said, that sounds kind of far out there, David, like bringing people in that are no longer here on earth. And I said, I know. I said, but listen, if Napoleon Hill, if it worked for him, and here's a guy that did it for business, I think it'll work for us spiritually as well. So she said, okay. So the first couple of weeks, she was just sort of getting used to spending time alone in the morning with no electronics on. I was teaching her how to meditate and all those things. And then we started getting into the heavy spiritual mental mastermind program work. Mm-hmm. After the second week of calling her guides in, she comes in and sits down and there's tears rolling down her face. Mm. And I said, what's going on? And she said, I had the most incredible session with what you taught me with the spiritual mastermind program. Oh, wow. And I said, tell me about it. And she said, David, it didn't make any sense. She said, I'm struggling with PTSD. I'm seeing you. I'm slowly getting off these medications with your help. Mm-hmm. I'm learning how to meditate. But during the mastermind group, when I asked them what I needed to do the most to help with PTSD, I got an answer that I don't think is right. And I said, what was your answer? She said, they told me to get a dog, an emotional support dog. Yeah. And I said, well, what's wrong with that? She said, dogs are my least favorite animals. Oh. I don't like dogs. And so I said, I'll tell you what I'm going to ask you to do. I said, the messages that I've received since 1980, there's never been one that's wrong. Yeah. No matter how bizarre it sounded, no matter how whatever. I said, if you're willing to follow your intuition and this group's advice, let's see if it might surprise you. Right. 4 weeks later, she had the dog for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Jerry, for the first time, she went out of her house for more than 15 or 20 minutes. Now she goes everywhere. Oh, wow. There isn't a place she doesn't visit with her emotional support dog, and she's in shock. She can't believe that this etheric practice of calling in people from the other side, as well as people who are alive today, to give you insight into problems and solve them. Yep. And I said, this information is available for everyone. Oh, and Jerry, the reason we put this book out right now is because of the shape the world is in. Yeah. We know if people follow the program in the book, it's fun, it's easy, it can take 10 minutes a day. It's not that. Now, I spend a lot of time with my group, but you don't have to spend more than 10 minutes. I've got another guy, an entrepreneur, a young guy. His business is starting to grow. He's doing this now. He has 2 people in his group, Elon Musk and Jesus Christ. Oh, wow. And he goes, you wouldn't believe the business advice I'm getting from Jesus Christ. So we're always trying to think about how can we bring more to this world? What can we bring that isn't being satisfied right now? The last 4 books I mentioned went #1 bestseller. I say that not to brag. I say it because every title and every book came from my spiritual mastermind group. Yeah. Every one of them. I would sit in the morning and I would say, it's time to write a new book. I need some new ideas. And within 1 or 2 days, maybe 3 days, all of a sudden the title of the book is sitting in front of me, because I tell people always have a pad of paper and a pen when you're doing just jot things down. So, I'd write down The Secret of Grief, and I didn't know why I was writing that. Well, I'm writing it because I'm going to write a book on it, Yep. And so really give this a shot and open our minds that there are answers and there's support from some of the most unlikely places sometimes.
Oh yeah.
That if we're not on the edge, that edge. Now, he was on the edge in 1980. We searched to see if anyone had written a book like we just put out today, and no one has. So now we're taking the wisdom of Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill, and in 2023, all we're doing, and I'm giving him all the credit in the world, as you know, because it wasn't my idea. I just took what he did and put it in a different format. But my God, this guy, Napoleon Hill, changed my life in a way that I'm sure he never planned on it, which is the coolest thing in the world. So I'm asking everyone with us, be open-minded, and to the thing you think, oh, that would never work for me. Give it a shot.
Right.
Well, and
like
go ahead.
You said like he never planned, like he wouldn't have imagined that happening. But I bet he did, in the standpoint of, this is going to change somebody's life.
100%.
Right? I'm doing
Jerry.
this to change somebody's life.
Right on.
And like, that is to your earlier point, what you're talking about right now for people to hear is that, like, if you're so consumed with the news, the society's telling you this, social media is telling you this, if you're so consumed with all that, you can't hear your own internal voice, and you can't have that communication with those other people to hear what is, because I've written 2 books. The first book I wrote in was it 21 days?
Yep.
And it was because I was like, and I couldn't figure out what the title was. I had a working title, and it was horrible because I was trying to mimic somebody else. And I was like, and my editor was like, I don't really like that. Yeah. And, we're going through the part. She goes, it'll come to you, right? It'll come to you. And I'm jotting different things down there. In the title of the book, the first book is the same title as the podcast, Confidence Through Health. Because she was like, she in one of her emails, she says, what do you want people to get out of this? I was like, well, if they get healthy, they'll be confident. And she goes, that's the title of the book.
I love it. Isn't it great?
And I was like, oh, because it's true, right? Like, and it's the same thing with the noise in your head. Like you're talking about, if you get rid of that, what society's telling you, you really sit down and go like, okay, who am I? What's my purpose? How can I help people? And if you answer those 3 questions, you change your life.
Absolutely. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And what you just said is crucial for people to hear a second time, Jerry, and that is, if your mind is always wrapped in music, news, social media, speaking with people, if you never have quiet time, if you never have downtime where there's nothing on in the background, where you're just sitting and being with yourself, you will never know the wisdom within. I mean this seriously. You'll never tap into the immense wisdom within you because it's being covered up with noise from the outside world. Why do so many monks go into solitude? Why do they go into solitary work, solitary prayer? They don't want to be affected by the outside world. They don't want their mind to be dirtied with the nonsense, the chaos and drama that's totally unnecessary. So they shut themselves away and they pray and they write and they do things to help heal the world from their perspective without it being distorted with the news or with, some comment on television or whatever, and that's pretty much the route that, I have taken. And with this new program, it's kind of fascinating. I can only speak if it's regarding work. Yeah. Outside of that, my world is silent. Yeah. So I don't speak. I just, go through my day. I have all kinds of rituals, we have all kinds of things that we do to get really grounded in that. Yep. And I'll tell you something. It's been 21 days of not speaking outside of work. And it's incredibly beautiful. Yeah. It really is. I mean, being quiet is wonderful. In the car, I don't have anything on, it's just myself, And if my mind starts going into places that are unhealthy, worry about this, worry about that, I just go through a little meditation. I'll just follow my breath in and out of the body for 20 counts, something to totally distract my mind and bring it back to a level of calmness. Right. And so now, if you're in the car and you're talking to people, you can't get to a level of calmness. Sure. If you're in the car and you're listening to stuff, you can't get to a level of calmness, Right. So, what we try to teach people is that one of the most beautiful gifts you can give yourself of self-care and self-love is silence. Yeah. And maybe start with a half an hour a day. Yeah. Just say the first 30 minutes of every day, I'll say good morning to my partner or whatever, and then I'll say I'm going to be in silence for 30 minutes. or maybe it's the end of the day or something, but start with 30 minutes of silence. Now,
Yep.
if you get agitated, if you get anxious, that's normal. It's called withdrawal.
Yeah.
You're withdrawing from the norm of noise and input, right?
Yep.
And it may be uncomfortable at first. It's just like getting sober. My first year of getting sober was not fun. It was not easy.
I'm sure. Yeah.
29 years later, I'm happy as hell.
Yeah.
Going through that 1 year was sure worth the next 30.
Yeah.
And the same thing with this, silence of 30 minutes.
Yeah.
In the beginning, if it's a little uncomfortable, it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Most of our growth comes from being uncomfortable. So be okay with it and accept it. And as you accept it and be okay with it, it gets much easier. And then the benefits start flying in.
Yeah. Well, and I want to be very conscious of your time. So, but I do want to point out, because I remember hearing, I can't remember, it was an NBA player, and they're walking around with their headphones, the big Beats headphones on before the game, and doing their drills and warm-ups and all this stuff and everything. And I just remember I saw a clip of somebody asking him, like, hey, just random questions, stuff like, hey, what do you listen to before the game? And he was like, nothing. And they were like, but you walk around with you. He goes, no, that's just so I don't hear anything.
That's right.
Right? Like, the impression is they're jamming, they're trying to use music to get them going and everything. And I do that before a race. I use music to get me, and part of it is, and it's the same playlist, so I can tell you exactly where I am in my warm up. I play this, right? But but part of it now is like, okay, I've been listening to the same playlist for years, so I'm not really paying attention to the playlist. It's just helping me focus and avoid everything else that could be going on. Right?
Totally understand.
So it's like I just get it zoned in. But it was it was like earth shattering for that person to go like, wait, you're not listening to something to get yourself going? You can just it's like when you are by yourself and you train yourself to be by yourself, then you can be comfortable being by yourself.
Absolutely. And that focus comes from silence. Yeah. The greatest focus you can ever get is being silent and being aware of what the task is at hand. Yep. This is my task. This is why I'm here. I am fully focused. Before we go, I got to mention this, Jerry. Our recent book with athletes, Mental Mastery of and for professional athletes, is actually free at our website. You can go and get the Audible of our brand new book, and you're going to hear about what LeBron James does that's so unique, what Novak Djokovic does that's so unique. Some of the great heavyweight boxers of the world, they spend hours a day in meditation. Yeah. It's going to blow your mind. And then there's a friend that Jerry and I have, Keith Mitchell. He's a former NFL All-Pro, Texas A&M grad, as Jerry is as well. Yep. He was paralyzed on the football field. Mm-hmm. And we tell the story of how now he is one of the top health gurus, yoga teachers, health coaches in the world. Yep. You'll hear about Ernest Graham, a running back from Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who took his first paycheck, his advanced paycheck, and invested it. Yeah. Unheard of in the world of professional sports. Within a year, he had an insurance business open so that when he retired, he would not have to work. Right. So we tell cool stories. Greg Louganis, the diver, the Olympic diver, these are all people I've worked with, interviewed, and how he wasn't going to continue at an Olympic event because he hit his head on the diving board during one of the pre-event exercises, right? Yep. And he went back to his room, and his coach was saying, we should just pull out, this is a serious cut and everything. Yep. And he said he sat there and he goes, David, I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and the end result was this. I did not put this amount of years into training for an event to let one thing hold me back. And he went and won gold, So that book is about determination, mental health, having an understanding of your gifts and talents, but also having an understanding of your weaknesses, because eliminating weaknesses in an athlete is the same as a human being. You get rid of your weaknesses and your strengths improve. So get the book free at talkdavid.com. Actually, there's 4 books up there for free, but this one is an Audible on your favorite athletes, and I think it's going to rock your world.
Awesome. And so how can people get in touch with you?
Oh, very easy. TalkDavid.com is the website.
Awesome.
Just go there. And we also, Jerry, offer free 20-minute sessions. And the reason we do that is that so many people are suffering.
Yeah.
And if in 20 minutes you vented to me your greatest challenge and we are able to get part of that out, it's going to be well worth the 20 minutes. So go, we talk for free. We talk all day long, which is why the website is called TalkDavid.com.
Awesome.
And this has been a blast with you, brother.
This has been so much fun, man. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for being a guest.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking out the Confidence Through Health podcast. Please subscribe, post a review, share this episode with those you love who need a little extra help with their health journey. Visit allinhealthandwellness.com to learn more about the coaching programs that I provide. All episodes are produced by the Social Media Cowboys, your source for all online marketing needs. Go to socialmediacowboys.com for more information.